It's taken out of context.
I'd like to call this meeting to order, and at this time I'd like to give the opening to Councillor Michael Zwaagstra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. More than 500 years ago, Johann Gutenberg's printing press revolutionized the world of letters. Instead of having to painstakingly copy books by hand, books could be printed by the thousands. The very first book that came off Gutenberg's printing press was the Bible. This made Bibles more accessible than ever before. Other important books were also printed and widely distributed. Clearly, the printing press was a huge leap forward, and it led to significantly higher literacy rates in the general population. However, not everyone was impressed with this new invention. Filippo da Strata, an Italian priest and scribe, felt that the printing press made it far too easy for scoundrels to distribute low-quality books and pamphlets. In 1474, he wrote a scathing polemic against what he called the brothel of the printing press. Quote, "The printers shamelessly print at a negligible price material which may, alas, inflame impressionable youths, while a true writer dies of hunger. Cure, if you will, the plague which is going away with all the laws of decency, and curb the printers," demanded da Strata. Simply put, da Strata believed that the easier it became to print books, the easier it would be to distribute misinformation. Well, this is obviously true. Da Strata's anti-printing views didn't gain much traction at the time. That's because most people recognized that the best answer to error is truth, not censorship. This principle still remains true today in the internet age, where unlimited information and misinformation is available at one's fingertips. Obviously, not all sources are equally reliable, and we need to exercise discernment when using the internet for our research. Unfortunately, some politicians seem to have an unhealthy obsession with censorship. For example, US President Joe Biden recently accused social media platforms like Facebook of killing people with misinformation about the COVID-19 pandemic. Similarly, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's Liberal government wants to regulate the content that appears on video streaming services and social media platforms. For example, if Bill C-10 becomes law, the federal government will have unprecedented control over what Canadians see on the internet. The refusal of the government to accept an opposition amendment that would have excluded content uploaded by users from Bill C-10's reach sent a clear signal that freedom of expression apparently means little to this government. Now, to be fair, there is a lot of misinformation on the internet. It's frustrating to see people sharing blatantly false information about COVID-19, vaccines, and other important policy issues. To many politicians, the obvious solution is to remove this misinformation from the internet. Hence the demand by President Biden that social media platforms must do more to regulate the content posted by users. However, censoring this type of content will do more harm than good. That's because censoring speech rarely changes people's minds. It just drives that speech further underground. When people retreat into their underground echo chambers, they become even more likely to be led astray by misinformation than before. Blaming social media platforms for the misinformation shared by their users is like blaming a bookstore for selling controversial books. In a democracy, people have the right to decide for themselves what they will read, and the last thing they need is for the government to dictate what information they are allowed to possess. If you see something that you don't like on the internet, your best bet is to refute it or ignore it. No government should have the power to unilaterally prevent people from sharing information, no matter how much some politicians might disagree with it. Censorship of the printed word was the wrong approach 500 years ago, and it remains wrong today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Zwaagstra. We have the agenda in front of us. Looking for a motion to adopt. Councillor Hebert, second by Councillor Penner. Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. We have the minutes of July 6th, 2021, regular council meeting. Starts on page 1. Council, we've all had a chance to review. Looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Hebert, second by Councillor Penner. Any comments?
No comment.
Okay, call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Is there any business arising from the minutes? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. There is no public hearing scheduled for today or no delegation, so we'll go. Yes, good idea. We will, I'll make a motion to excuse Councillor Siemens. Or I'd like to, I'm calling for a motion to excuse Councillor Siemens. Councillor Penner, Councillor Hebert, call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay, we'll move on to number 8, reports and recommendations of City Manager. This is the, A is Loewen Boulevard and PTH 12 North, the engineering contract award. Mr. Worthing, could you please introduce this file?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this item is pursuant to a request for proposal that the City of Steinbach issued in early June of this year to request proposals from qualified consulting engineering companies to provide services for the proposed reconstruction project for the intersection at Loewen Boulevard and PTH 12 North, anticipated for 2022 and 2023. There were 5 proposals that were received by the city with the recommendation that council award the engineering and project administration contract to WSP Canada Inc. for the amount of $414,302 plus disbursements. So that is the recommendation by administration.
Thank you, Mr. Worthing. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Zwaagstra?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll make the motion to award the contract.
Is there a seconder? Second by Councillor Hebert. Go ahead, Councillor Zwaagstra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a positive step forward. We know that the intersection of PTH 12 and Loewen Boulevard is the last of the intersections along Brant Road that have not been upgraded, and so we know that based on our traffic studies and our own personal experiences that this intersection badly needs to be reconstructed and such, and so that is what's going to happen in 2022 and 2023. This contract here is so that the engineering design can take place, and obviously in order for this to happen properly, and obviously the project is going ahead, we need to make sure that we have it properly designed, and so WSP Canada presented the best offer, and so that's why we're awarding the engineering contract to them.
Thank you, Councillor Zwaagstra. Anything further?
Yeah, I'd just like to add, not only were the company that had the lowest bid, but also they appeared to be the most experienced company and the most experienced personnel, and they were also the second highest in undertaking the project. So I think it's a very reputable firm that will do us well.
Thank you. Anything further? Anything in closing? Okay, Council will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Go to 9A, accounts payable and back of the book. Looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Penner, second by Councillor Hebert. Any comments?
Normally not, but today I do want to make one quick comment here, Mr. Mayor. I am very happy to see that STARS Foundation had come to us earlier in the year requesting a grant for, I believe it was $1 per capita, and we have honored that grant and are transferring those funds to them. So STARS is an invaluable asset to our community, and it's something that I think all of us are very happy to put our support behind.
Okay, thank you. Anything?
No further comments.
Anything further of Council? Anything in closing? Okay, Council, call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, 9B, the financial statements ending June 30th. That's also in the back of the book. Looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Hebert, second by Councillor Hebert. Go ahead.
They're self-explanatory. No further comment.
Okay.
No further comment.
Anything further of Council? Okay, we'll call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. We got 9C, these are building permits for June 20th, 21. Starts on page, it's on page 8. Looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Susan Penner. Second by Councillor Zwaagstra. Go ahead.
I have nothing to add.
Okay. Well, council was a pretty good month. We had some pretty good development in commercial and industrial. It was nearing one or just over 1.8. So that's definitely, that's very good for the month. And residential, just over 2 million for a total of just shy of $4 million. Was a pretty good month. We've added a total of 10 family dwelling units for a year-to-date total of 96. So I think all in all, it's a respectable year. We're just over $34 million year-to-date in development. So we're definitely doing well, and we're climbing right along. So looking for a motion to, no, we did the motion to approve, correct? Okay, call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 9D, we got business licenses on page 9. Looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Hebert, second by Councillor Zwaagstra. Any comments?
My comment is it's good to see people that are applying for business license. There's 4 new businesses here, and glad to see them come on board.
Okay. Anything further?
Councillor Hayward covered it all.
Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. We got 9E. This is Manitoba. This is referring to street lighting on Malibu Drive, Alpine Drive, and Murano Cove. Council, the Manitoba Hydro is looking for us to approve 9 60-watt LED street lights to add to our contract. We're looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Penner. Councillor Penner. We've got the 2 Penners going today. Any comments? Anything further?
This is standard when we are adding new lights to new developments.
Okay. Anything further of council? Okay. Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay, we got 9F. This is Bylaw 2179, rezoning of Hampton Village Phase 8. This is for first reading. Council, this starts on page 13 of our package. Mr. Worthing, could you please introduce this file?
Yes, Mr. Mayor and members of council, this is an application with Stonebridge Development Corporation to propose the rezoning of the subject parcel, which is the last phase of a multi-phase development located at the end of Windham Estate Drive in Steinbach, from DR1 Development Reserve 1 to RSF Residential Single Family. This proposal will see the creation of 30 single-family lots and creation of a public reserve parcel. Recommendation is for council to give this bylaw first reading so that a public hearing can be scheduled for later on in August.
Thank you, Mr. Worthing. Councillor Penner,
Motion to approve?
do we have a seconder? Councillor Zwaagstra? Go ahead, Councillor Penner.
Yeah, this is exciting to hear. We have a low lot inventory right now in Steinbach, so to add 30 lots for single-family dwellings is much needed. And this will open it up for a public hearing to see if anybody objects or what their thoughts are, but hopefully it'll be received well.
Thank you, Councillor Penner. Anything further, Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to add that this is obviously, as is noted here in our information, that the land in question has always been part of the overall concept plan for Hampton Village. This has been developed in phases. This would be the final phase, and as was noted by Councillor Penner, this is 30 additional single-family lots, something we definitely need, and looking forward to seeing what happens during the public hearing, and hopefully this goes ahead.
Thank you. Anything further of council? Anything in closing?
Nothing further.
Okay. Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, we'll go to 9G. This is Bylaw 2183. This is the OCP amendment. We're looking at first reading at this also. It starts on page 24 of our package. Mr. Worthing, could you please introduce this file?
Mr. Mayor, this particular bylaw If it looks familiar, it is. This was a bylaw originally introduced at the June 15th, 2021 council meeting as bylaw 2177. This is an application to amend the official community plan designation for lands related to a property on Park Road West in Steinbach. And it is to see that these lands be redesignated to a mix of residential policy area and commercial policy area from the current designation. Recommendation is that council give this bylaw first reading so that a public hearing could be scheduled for later on in August.
Thank you, Mr. Workentine. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Hebert, second by Councillor Zwaagstra.
Again, it's nice to see the confidence that builders are putting into Steinbach. And as we see here, as the administrator just said, it originally came to council on June 15th, and it's an amendment to that application. And we passed it earlier, and this seems feasible again.
Thank you. Anything further?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to add that the intent here is so that the front portion of the property would be designated a commercial policy area. The developer is looking at having a mix of residential and commercial. This is becoming increasingly common in developments, and I certainly think that is a reasonable request. And so, and we also have to make sure that our official community plan matches with the development, and that's why we have to make the change to the official community plan in addition to the later zoning change.
Anything further of council? Anything included?
Nothing further.
Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. 9H, we have bylaw 2184. This is Penn-Co Rezoning, first reading. Starts on page 34 of our package. Mr. Workentine, could you please introduce this file?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this bylaw 2184 is similar in circumstances. The original bylaw submitted by Penn-Co Construction was given first reading by council on June 15th of this year under bylaw 2178, and due to that original rezoning application being amended to also provide for residential zonings on the subject property, it is being resubmitted to council to consider first reading. It is recommended by administration that council proceed with first reading, and then a public hearing would again be scheduled for later in August.
Thank you, Mr. Workentine. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Penner?
Motion to approve.
Second by Councillor Hebert. Go ahead, Councillor Penner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In any new and big development, it is obviously very common to have varying densities in that development. And this is just kind of laying out what the plan is now. Supply and demand also plays a role in this, so potentially in the future they'll come back and want certain areas changed again. But this is just kind of common and standard as areas are developed.
Anything further, Councillor Hebert?
Yes, I would just add that I'm looking forward to this, and I'm hoping that this will go to public hearing, that it'll be approved, because it looks like a good plan. Thank you.
Anything further of council? Anything in closing, Councillor Penner?
No.
Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We have 9I, Reid and Miller Chartered Professional Accountants Incorporated. This is the 2020 financial statements of the Steinbach Community Development Corp. It starts on page 51 of your package. Mr. Workentine, do you want to introduce this file?
Yes, this is a year-end financial report. It is being provided to City Council as information, as the Steinbach Community Development Corporation is an entity that is controlled by the City of Steinbach. It is being presented for information and recommendation for Council to accept the report as provided.
Okay, Council looking for a motion to accept. Councillor Zwaagstra, second by Councillor Penner. Go ahead, Councillor.
No comment.
Okay, nothing further? Nothing further of council, and we'll call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay, Mr. Workendine, we've got more of very much the same files. J, K, and L. Should we just go through them quickly, or did you want to mention any highlights or introduce any of them?
Well, if, with your permission, I'll just briefly introduce all three.
Okay.
Just to give context, if that's okay.
That'd be fine.
Item J represents the 2020 financial statements for the Jcap Library. Again, similar to the statements of the Steinbach Community Development Corporation, the Jcap Library is an entity that is controlled by the city. These financial statements are being presented as information and to be accepted. The remaining two reports, K being the federal gas tax revenue statements, and L, the handy transit financial report. Those two are supplementary financial reports that the city prepares every year. They do represent components of city operations, and they just are being presented as supplementary information, and again, recommendation that those two reports just simply be accepted by council.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Workendine. Okay, council, we'll go back to J then, the Reid Miller Chartered Professional Accountants Incorporated, with referring to the 2020 financial statements for the Jcap Library. Starts on page 62. We're looking for motion to accept the statements. Councillor Hebert, second by Councillor Penner. Go ahead, councillors.
No statement.
No comments.
Anything further of council? Okay, call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay, council, now we're on to 9K. These are very much similar. This is referring to the 2020 financial statements and federal gas tax revenue. Again, we're looking for a motion to accept. Councillor Penner, second by Councillor Zwaagstra. Any comments?
No comments.
Anything further of council? Okay, council will go directly into the question. Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay, we've got 9L. This is the last of the financial statements. 2020 Handy Transit Financial Report, again, starting on page 79. Council, motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Councillor Hebert, second by? Councillor Zwaagstra, any comments?
No further comments.
Nothing further? Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Council, are there any questions of council at this time? Okay, seeing none. There are no correspondence and petitions. There are no other business. Council looking for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Hebert, second by Councillor Penner. Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Next regular council meeting, Tuesday, August 3rd, 2021, 7:30 p.m.